Hello, BookTube. As you can see, little watery Sunday light coming through the window there. I thought it wasn't disturbing the video enough to block it off, and it gives you a better view of the bean who's surveying her kingdom. We went on a dog walk that was extremely nice. It was extremely nice. Frida is not aggressive. She would not bite another dog, even if that other dog were biting her. I think the most she would do would be to attack a dog if the dog attacked me, which is not really that much of a concern, especially, although it did happen when she was a little puppy, but that was unexpected, and the dog who did it was more mortified than anybody. But in terms of an actual aggressive dog who just wanted to attack me, she would probably intervene then, but otherwise, no. No. But that doesn't mean that other dogs can do no wrong. Not at all. My little baby is very fussy. She is extremely pampered. She has spent her whole life watching other dogs, all strange dogs, defer to her. She thinks they're deferring to her. They're actually deferring to me, but I'm not going to tell her that. And it has shaped her accordingly. She is an extremely dominant dog. So if another dog comes along, if we meet another dog and that dog is at all playful, maybe that dog has been well socialized. My baby has not been well socialized. Maybe that dog is well socialized and it gets playful. Oh, another dog. Oh, how much fun. Yay. A lot of times those dogs are picking up on me and they don't realize it yet. They expect that the feeling that they're getting must be coming from another dog. It's not. It's coming from me. And they do realize that. It takes them about 30 seconds to realize that. So, and once they do, they pretty much ignore Frida and just want to face smooch with me. Or in the case of one dog just yesterday, put my entire head in their mouth out of sheer joy, to the horror of their owners. I'm always assuring owners, this is not an attack. This is pure joy. Nothing is going on here that I don't want to happen, believe me. But if a dog has that reaction to Frida, that's not going to go well because she doesn't like play. At least with a dog, she's perfectly happy to play with humans, provided they lay there and take it. But she's not interested in give and take with other dogs, especially, oh my God, her bête noire, the thing that she hates most of all, are the dogs who are still puppies, even though they're bigger breeds, so they're very big, they're 100 pounds, but they're still flouncing and flopping all over the place. Oh my God, that doesn't go well. They get an earful. I'm constantly having to sort of try and calm them down. I put my hands on their shoulders and say, baby, I know you're excited, especially now that you know that you recognize me. But you can't act this way around her. She's just going to blow her stack. That's one way that a dog can misbehave. And another way that a dog can misbehave does sometimes happen. It happens about once a week. Sometimes we will come across another dog, and that dog will be giving challenge, which is largely speaking a thing that you probably can't see. You sort of have to speak the language, so to speak. With dogs, as with most non-human animals, the language is a huge percent physical instead of vocal. And some dogs will do that. Now, I'm not vilifying them at all. They're all my babies. Some dogs will do that, and it's largely out of nervousness. They're on a leash. They're out in the chaotic world. They're not like that at home at all. And they give challenge out in the world because out of nervousness. Animals, dogs especially. I can speak for dogs. I'm not sure about other animals. Dogs give challenge a lot because of nervousness. It's not always because they're aggressive. Aggression is actually a very costly decision to make. Most animals don't make it unless they absolutely have to, or unless they're invulnerable, unless they're apex predators. Otherwise, when you show signs that a human eye is going to perceive as aggression, it's usually nervousness. It doesn't matter, though, because the effect is the same. You are not allowed to give challenge to Frida. You are not allowed to do that. She does not react well to that at all. It makes her erupt in vocalizations and body language. Most dogs give it up once they're around her for a few seconds. They give it up because as the old saying goes, it's not the size of the dog in the fight. It's the size of the fight in the dog. And Frida, out of all the dogs on Earth, 22 billion dogs on Earth, she's the only one who's mine. She's the only one who's mine. She has never heard a word of command from me, and if I'm lucky, she never will. So she's the top dog in any encounter like that. The thought that she would yield or cede is inconceivable to her, literally inconceivable to her. And sometimes that can be very, very inhospitable to other dogs. They give you challenge and they want you to back off. And again, it's not always aggression. a lot of times they want you to back off just because they're nervous. They want you to literally back away. They don't want you near enough to them to set them off. Dogs bite humans, they bite other dogs, they bite other creatures just in general far more often out of fear than out of anger. And when, typically speaking, when they are biting out of aggression and anger, they don't make any noise at times. So there's none of this hysterical barking. But that's another way that dogs can get a bad reaction out of Frida, and that is to approach her on the sidewalk or at the park or whatever with the body language that says, we're slotting ourselves here, and I'm slotting you below me. Some dogs even make the bad mistake of slotting her below them because of her size. She's only 10 pounds. That's a bad mistake. It is the size of the fight in the dog, and Frida is completely dominant. She's not aggressive, but you cannot, you absolutely have to do the 4 or 5 body language cues that signal that you've seen that and you understand it. Right? We're talking about you, baby. You very much have to do that. Most of those body cues a normal human would not even see. And every once in a while there's a scent clue as well that humans can't perceive. And so I'm on my guard when we're out walking because dogs can do that. They can either, usually in this neighborhood there are 4 main culprits of the big floofy puppy boys who are, they're the size of an adolescent human. But they're still puppies. They still have no self-control whatsoever. And I don't want them to have any self-control. I want them to go nuts. Absolutely. Get that out of your system in an eye blink of time. That will be gone. So indulge it. Don't ever reprimand it. Just indulge it completely. In no time at all, you would be willing to give almost anything to have that back. So give it its free rein. Absolutely. And I'd say that very much about other dogs as well. I'm constantly egging them on when they're big floofy puppies, even though I know my baby's not going to like that. That's one way. And then the other way is for a dog to somehow want to give challenge. That doesn't happen often because the closer the dog comes physically to me, the less inclined they are to give challenge because they're actually giving it to me. I know that Frida's the thing that has their attention, but Frida's mine. And so your invitation to play, your especially giving challenge, especially aggression, that's me. And you don't get to do that. If you're 4-legged, if you're a canine, you don't get to do that. So it's not much of a problem, but our dog walk just recently was wonderful. None of the dogs did anything like that. They just walked right up to her. They wanted to know her. That's all. No play, no bouncing around, and no aggression either. No dominance whatsoever. It was wonderful. It was a reminder to me that Frida is not actually a bad dog when it comes to other dogs. My pointer, Malin, was. She was so overprotective of my Basset Hound, Lucy, that she fell into the lifelong habit of being actually aggressive to other dogs. I couldn't go near them. We couldn't approach other dogs because she would go. The minute the dog came anywhere near Lucy, who was invulnerable to physical harm, she was encased in seal blubber. but it didn't matter to Malin. The minute the dog came anywhere near Lucy, Malin just erupted in anger. So I couldn't bring her anywhere near dogs, which meant I went 15 years without smooching anybody on our walks, unless I had somebody with me. If I had somebody with me, I would hand them Malin's leash and go over and smooch. But otherwise, and that would increase Malin's hysteria. So this is a great relief when a walk goes like the one that we just had, where I'm reminded that Frida is not like Malin. First of all, Malin was a very nervous dog. Frida is not a nervous dog at all. But also, Malin was genuinely aggressive. I couldn't let her near another dog. She would bite another dog. Frida would never do that, and this walk was a perfect example of that. She's a little stiff. She's not really interested in being the friend of another dog. Not really. She's not going to be a buddy and hang out with them, but she's not going to attack them either. She's perfectly curious to know what they've eaten, the last 10 meals they've eaten, the last 10 poops they've taken. The sniffing takes place. It's perfectly normal. It was very nice. I'm hoping for a repeat. But that was a dog walk. That's not why I made this video. I have 2 reasons to make this video. One is a kind of, I guess I'm going to throw a decision out there and see what you think of it. I always have to remember that when it comes time for BookTube decisions. I have to remember that you're all involved here too, right? This is not a business for me. It's not a side hustle for me. This is friendly conversation. I'm talking with my imaginary BookTube friends. That's you. Which means that, unless I'm dead certain of something, I know exactly what I want the Steve Tiberius Donahue book club to be like, for instance. Unless I'm dead certain about something, then I'm perfectly willing to just talk about it. And something came up. I was wondering what you might think. I did a video yesterday. Troy Tradup did his first original tag, the Give My Regards to BookTube tag. And it was great. It was all about Broadway musicals, which I've watched an enormous number of Broadway musicals. I've heard an enormous number of them. So I was all for the tag. But in the course of the tag, I not only talked about Broadway musicals, I talked about movies as well. A lot of Broadway musicals have been adapted into movies, sometimes disastrously. For instance, Les Mis. Don't have your cast of actors do their own singing. Okay? Don't do that. If I can't unlive the experience of Eddie Redmayne gasping atonally through the whole length of Les Miserables. I can't unlive that, and I wish I could. But anyway, in the course of that tag, in addition to talking about Broadway musicals, which I barely started, I barely scratched the surface of Broadway musicals. The Broadway musicals of the 1950s are, except for one exception there, completely forgotten. I know them all. Word by word, line by line, song by song, I know them all. From the late 40s, all of the 50s, early 60s. But anyway, in the course of that tag, in addition to talking about Broadway musicals, I talked about movies as well. Movie adaptations of Broadway musicals or Broadway plays or whatnot. I talked about movies, and I got the same responses in the emails that I get every time I open my Yap about movies. I've been getting it for years on this channel, so I know that it's not a one-off thing. Were people emailing saying, there's something about the way you talk about movies, it's really entertaining. I've even had people over the course of a couple of years say, I watch a lot of movie review YouTube channels. The Movie Bros. The guys who all look like they could be cast as Peter Parker in a Spider-Man movie. They all look the same. And I've had a lot of people say, I watch a lot of these channels and they don't talk about movies the way you do. At all. And I like the way you talk about movies. It makes me think, even if I don't agree with you. It makes me think, and it's fun. I wish you would do more of it, is the response that I've had many, many times over the years. And I got a blast of that response in response to that Broadway musical. I got a blast of that saying, I really like the way you talk about movies. I wish this were a regular feature on your channel. One of you actually made a huge mistake and then caught yourself. It was hilarious. I think you're watching now, so I won't, no names, but I won't embarrass you at all because I laughed out loud. I laughed for a while at it. One of you sent me an email saying, if you don't make some sort of regular channel where you talk about movies on your channel in addition to books, if you don't do that, I'm going to unsubscribe from your channel. I'm going to get 10 other people to unsubscribe from your channel. And the person you must have realized that I am not a usual YouTube channel and that the size of my subscriber count deeply dismays you. You're all weirdos. I don't want more and more of you here. There are way too many people to send books to as it is. So the person who sent that email must have realized it because they wrote back a minute later. They wrote another email and said, I meant to say, if you don't do a regular movie feature on your channel, I will subscribe to your channel and I will get 10 people to subscribe to your channel. Because I rather famously don't want any more subscribers, I guess. It's totally accurate. I love the fact that you're all here, but it is weird that this strange, obscure channel, a million-year-old guy with smallpox scars from 1872, telling jokes mostly to himself and quoting everything from Star Trek to Livy. It is insane that this channel has more than 500 subscribers. That's just insane. I've been saying that for years. This person wrote back and changed their threat to, if you don't do it, I will subscribe and I will make 10 people subscribe. I thought that was hilarious, but it did bring up a point that I want to put in front of you as part of this video, which is, what should I do? What should I do along those lines? God knows I love talking about movies. Should I do a regular feature where Steve goes to the theater, where we talk about movies or stuff maybe that shows that are original on streaming services? I have Amazon Prime and I have HBO. Or no, I have Amazon Prime and I have Netflix. But I also get electronic screeners. I have a friend who works in Hollywood and has worked in Hollywood for a long time, and she sends me electronic screeners of pretty much everything. And it's certainly anything I ask for. She doesn't send me everything. Because I make almost no requests. I'm just eternally grateful. So, I mean, if I were to do this, what form would it take? Would I do new releases in the theaters now? New releases on Netflix or Amazon Prime now? And just talk about them? A number of you, the emails have a similar complaint, which is it's maddening. I love listening to you talk about these things. I love listening to the way you talk about these things. A number of you said it's a very old-fashioned way, where it's not namby-pamby, it's not postmodern or post-structuralist, and it's not the movie bros who are saying an orchestrated chorus line in order to keep the flow of freebies coming. It's not anything like that. It seems more old-fashioned in a good way. And a number of you have, the steady complaint has been, I really like it, but I never know when it's going to crop up. It crops up in tags or in discussions or whatever, and I love those moments, but I want to be able to know those moments are there. I want a regular feature that's recurring on the channel. So what should I do? I'm not objecting to that at all, but what should I do if I do that? Should be new releases? Older stuff? Should I take requests? I'm open. I wanted to put it out there for my imaginary booktube friends. I want to comply so that the threat that this person has of organizing a mass subscription doesn't happen. Because we're dangerously close to 14,000 subscribers, and I don't want to reach that milestone. Anyway, let me know. Let me either in email or on Voxer or in the comments of this video, all the ways that you have to get in touch with me. Let me know what you would like that to be. Give me some ideas. I've been thinking about it myself. I have a couple of ideas, but since this idea is largely coming from you, this is something I should have addressed years ago, considering how much response I get. Since it's coming from you, you should be able to put your 2 cents in, right? So let me know if you have any ideas. But then we also have the mail. There were periodicals that I guess were stuck deep in the mailbox and were not spotted yesterday. So they only came to light today. There's 2 of them. I thought we'd go through those together. And it won't take long because one of them is an almost total bust. This is GQ. And this is the sports issue. And that's going to go right by me. That sports issue is going to go right by me. The only thing that I really noticed was this ad right here. This is Louis Vuitton. And some of you will recognize one of the models in question. Maybe not. Maybe I'm the only one who will. But this is a photo spread. And boy, oh boy, is this a familiar sight to me. Boy, oh boy, is it. Because that was all over the runways in Milan and Florence last week. Major fashion shows last week in Milan and Florence. And that look was all over those runways. It was by far the dominant look this season, which is, unfortunately, the return of heroin chic, where all the models are not just thin, but emaciated. All of them look joyless. All of them are told to look joyless. Look like you are badly jonesing for your next jolt of heroin. Look like that on the runway. Look like you are a distracted, joyless, completely affectless drug addict. And I hate to see it, because heroin chic had its big heyday, over a decade ago, and did a lot of damage to people's self-image, did a lot of harm to people who follow the fashion industry and want to imitate it. The bodies that were on display in Milan especially were unhealthy, deeply unhealthy, and also fraudulent, because the models that are that way would die if that's what they look like all year long. They starve themselves. And a lot of actual heroin was involved in order to achieve that look prior to the shows in Florence and Milan. That's not healthy. That's really not healthy. And also there was this look. In addition to the heroin chic, there was this, it was all over Milan, just where the looks were these formless draperies, basically these tiny stick figure models morosely walking out on the platform, wearing clothing that has no borders at all, just flows from head to toe. Completely baggy, completely formless. And you might be thinking, well, okay, this is the runways in Florence and Milan. That doesn't affect me, doesn't affect Kmart, doesn't affect where I do my shopping. But it will. It always does. It always does. These were Louis Vuitton and a couple of really high profile fashion designers where the clothing looks ridiculous and it isn't functional and it's meant to sort of display a comic book artistic vision. But it is going to affect the next lowest rung, still way out of a normal person's price range, way out. In the big mall here in Boston, the Prudential Center Mall, they actually arrange it literally on levels. You walk in and it's Five Guys Pizza and that sort of thing. It's normal family style restaurants. You go up the escalator one rung and it's the Microsoft Store or Barnes and Noble back when it existed in that mall, or a bunch of other things like that. And there are 3 levels above that. And the stores get more and more exclusive the higher up you go, until you're finally up in the Emporium. And if we look at that in reverse, the next lowest rung of fashion designers is going to take their cue from the formless, Roman toga gowns of Florence and Milan. They're going to take their cue from that so that their next line of clothing next year or later this year will be a little more shapeless than their previous run. And the next fashion designer down a little bit later than that will ape them, and then so on and so forth. So I think it's easy to see that this time next year, everyone will be wearing shapeless, baggy clothing. And I don't object to that. I rather like shapeless, baggy clothing myself. Tight clothing, I've never understood the appeal of tight clothing. And it's weirded me out, the long heyday that it's had ruling the fashion industry, these skin-tight things. That has been sort of the prevailing ethos in fashion for 5-6 years. And I've never understood that. It's so uncomfortable. And it goes hand in hand with smaller and smaller bags and satchels. The point where you have someone holding a little thing like this that's just a little bit bigger than one credit card. And yet it's their purse. It's their bag. And you can see here that is changing. Gigantic airline bags were all over the runways. So maybe that will change as well. So I'm not complaining at all about the look. The fashion industry looks like it is going to be slowly revolving back towards the Steve ensemble of a roomy shoulder bag and nice shapeless baggy clothing, nice comfortable clothing. And the fashion world should revert to Steve in this as in all cases. No, the thing that bothers me is the body type, which is also going to be imitated by a lot of people, this heroin chic body type, where I am not only completely glassy, affectless, and completely genderless as well. That was no accident at all. Completely genderless as well, where there are these sort of android-type beings that are wandering around on the platforms, and there's nothing that's visibly male and nothing that's visibly female, and there's nothing that's visibly alive. All of them were exfoliated to the point of stick figure. And some of these models I have followed, some of them I know. And they don't normally look like that. They achieved that look, and that I worry that look is going to be imitated. I worry that heroin chic is coming back. That would be bad. But that was that one. All the rest of that magazine is full of sports articles, and the sports articles don't have any appeal for Steve. But then we have Donoghue Does Decor. We have a home magazine. This is House Beautiful. Small spaces. Brilliant ways to live large. And you almost feel encouraged, right, by that cover? That little 2-seater couch looks kind of comfortable, in a way. And there are bookcases. There's paintings where there shouldn't be. Those should be shelves with more books on them. And there's no ready source of light. A candle is not a ready source of light. So you know that this is for show. You're not supposed to sit there and read. But it bodes well for the issue. At least you can sort of think that. And it's kind of true. When we look through house magazines, we see 2 kinds of disasters. We see the kind that cannot be saved, where you need to bring in a crew of people and they need to strip everything out of here. Not just the furniture, but the wall fixtures, the wall paneling, the wallpaper, everything. Strip it to the joists and we can rebuild it on its bones. The bones aren't usually bad, because the bones are usually coming from a century ago when people weren't absolutely effing insane, when there was no such thing as an interior designer. That's one case. And the other case is where everything's fine, you just need to fix some things. A few things. We don't need a crew of people. Just need 2 strong teenage boys to fix things. It'll take less than an hour to do. And this issue, well, it had ads for stuff like this. which is kind of creepy, that kind of penitentiary bedding style where, you expect it to take place in a horror movie where the big reveal is that that bed is sentient and hungry. There were things like that, but this issue had a lot of close calls as well. Had a lot of things in it that where, with a little bit of work, you might be able to make it work. You wouldn't need a crew to come in. Like, for instance, we stick with ads. Look at that. That's not a bad space at all. That could be, you could fix this into something. You would want to move this chair right over to here, pull the curtain back a little, drape it behind the back of the chair, and turn the chair a little so that it is, get the ostentatious, pretentious drinks tray out of there, move it somewhere else. Put the chair right where it's going to get natural light from the window, and where the person who sits in the chair is going to have a nice natural view. Fill this bookcase with books, get rid of the knickknacks and the tchotchkes, get rid of this thing, whatever it is. But this, that's a person moving things around. That's salvageable. Unfortunately, this issue was full of examples like that, where, here's another ad. This is not salvageable. You would need to pull all of that out, pull everything out of there, and just start over. And that was the tension in this issue, was between those two things. Some things, every once in a while, you'll come across an example of something that even stripping it to the joist won't work. You just have to burn it to the ground and start over. This would be a perfect example of that. Can you imagine living in that space? There's the front door for you and your guests and every bear within 30 miles. Here are the floor-to-ceiling windows, not only on the first floor, but on the second floor. Those are for the rock-throwing youths and also for the burglars. The ones who can't manage a glass door. I think pretty much any burglar could manage a glass door. And that leaves only the guesswork of them wondering whether or not they should burglarize the place. If only there was some way for them to know whether or not you have anything worth stealing. Oh, that's right. They can just look in and see. Who would live in this? Who would live in a space like this, open to the whole wide world? And this is a whole function. This is tiny treasures. This is a feature about prefabricated homes. And a lot of them are like that. Where, look at this, that is just totally open access. Who would want that? Have we got to the point where the home is not even a place for privacy? Then we have, look at this, you can order this in. Big, single-piece metal tub with the water provider that you get, just a crew in here that makes you this. I don't agree with it being on full display for the neighborhood, but that is very, very nice. The only problem with something like this, a little prefab tub. I wonder what the price is. Does it say? No, it doesn't. This is Duravit, but it doesn't say what it would cost you to get this design in. The problem with that kind of a design, where you bring in a big metal tub like that, is that quite a few homes in the 21st century, the floor would not be able to take the weight of that tub with a human full of water. You would be putting a severe strain on you'd be unwise to do it. If you dead set wanted to have that done in your bathroom, which I certainly do, you would have to have a crew come in ahead of time, a specialist come in ahead of time and test the ultimate limit, the weight-bearing limit of that part of the floor. And unfortunately, flooring in a bathroom is very prone to rot. So it's a long-term thing. It's usually not going to collapse right underneath you, but you put an extra, that metal tub probably weighs 1,000 pounds. You fill it full of water and you put a human in there, you're adding another 1,000 pounds. That's a lot of weight to put on your floor. That would be a severe caution. If you wanted to do that, that would be a severe caution. There's a feature in here on Murphy beds that fold down from the wall, and some of them look pretty interesting. Like, for instance, look at this thing. It's a Murphy bed that pulls out from the base of the stair. That's kind of clever. And it just folds right in to the space at the bottom of the stair. Spaces like that tend to be wasted. And a Murphy bed adds a huge use to it. This shows you what House Beautiful and all these magazines are aimed at. They're aimed at people with a gigantic amount of liquid assets. So they have a feature, time to build a guest house. Which is always a good idea, and there are quite a few interesting designs in here. Some of the designs are horrifying, like that. So there's your toilet, there's your bathroom sink, here's a curtain, and right behind the curtain is a gigantic coiled king cobra. No, you don't want any. You don't want this. You don't want anything hiding a space where something could be. No, you don't want to end up living in a horror movie. But I don't object to the sentiment of time to build a guest house at all. It's not the idea, it's the liquidity. A guest house it'd be enormously expensive to do. I have the perfect setup for one here on this property. The perfect setup. In fact, it's largely started. There is a building there that used to be a 2-car garage. It's an easy run for all the utility pipes in the house to that building. An easy run. It'd be easy to do. It'd take an afternoon. Same thing with electricity. It'd be easy to connect that building to electricity. In other words, to make it livable, to give it heat, hot and cold running water, and electricity. That would be easy to do. But it won't work the way it is now. The whole of the ground floor, it's very attractively built into a hillside. The whole of the ground floor would have to be redesigned. It's full of junk right now, and it looks like a 2-car garage. So the front would have to be pulled out and redesigned. One door, one big window, maybe a second floor window. There'd also have to be a second floor installed on there, and that requires permits. It requires permission from the city. It requires a building crew. It requires an inspection ahead of time. And all of that would have to be fitted with electricity and hot and cold running water. It would be possible to do a small second floor on top of the already spacious first floor, and that would be a guest house. But that's a lot of money up front. That's the reason that a lot of people don't do that. A lot of people in this neighborhood have perfectly sound outbuildings of one kind or another, usually not as extensive as this one, but perfectly. Frida and I on our walk passed by a big, archy, ramshackle house that I think has multiple apartments in it. And they have a little yard, and they have a big driveway they don't use anymore. Once upon a time, they had 2 dogs in that yard. I watched those boys get old. They were puppies once upon a time. And they were there to guard the property, and there was a sign on the gate that said, these dogs can reach this fence in 5 seconds. Can you? And for a long time, probably 10 years, those boys could. And that sign stayed there. The owners, whoever it was, they just never thought to remove it. It used to break my heart. I would walk my girls past that yard, and that sign would still be there, and I would still go up and face smooch those boys, but they couldn't clear that fence at all. And it would take them a long time to even know you were there, much less do it. The sign stayed there. And right next to that driveway and in front of that yard, that house has not 1 but 2 outbuildings that are just sort of falling apart. They've got wonderful foliage cover from 2 big trees right abutted to them. They're right there on the driveway. If you took, what, $8,000? If you knew a guy, if you took $8,000 and probably the better part of 4 months of steady round-the-clock work, steady 9 hours a day work, you could transform those 2 outbuildings into either 2 separate guest houses, or my idea would be 1 big guest house. You're gonna have to redo the roofs anyway. The roofs are in horrible shape. They're sort of rusted tin, so those have to come off anyway. And once the roofs are off, you could make an extended breezeway between the 2 of them and make it 1 house. 1 guest house. 1 beautiful property. It doesn't have to be a guest house in the hoity-toity, Rockefeller way. It can be a rental property. And again, it's right on the power lines that supply the house. So it would be an easy thing to hook those buildings up. And there are buildings like that all over this neighborhood. The only reason that they aren't guest houses is because it takes a huge amount of outlay. You've got to have that money up front. Those crews have got to be paid. So, but anyway, let's move on to the profiled houses. One of them, for instance, is the cottage next door, where this couple renovates a cottage. It says, how do you redesign a fixture of your childhood? For one architect, the answer came easy. You don't. Now, of course, you do. If you're a pretentious 21st century architect, you do remodel it. You are going to try to recapture. And I thought, sure, when I read that we were going to see the return of our old nemesis, the giant stuffed giraffe. But no, nope, it doesn't happen. Instead, we get hideous mistake after hideous mistake in this redesigned cottage. That is the living room. Those are the chairs in the living room. A whitewashed, bricked-in fireplace, white walls, a staring relative on the wall, and chairs that don't have armrests. Chairs that don't have armrests. I know I speak for a number of very ancient people out there when I say that a chair without armrests is a torture device. Once you reach a certain age, you need armrests in order to get both into and out of any chair. Otherwise, it's no good to you. So you, again, in a case like this, you would have to just go through and pull everything out and just start over. Here we have the bathtub. Again, you would need a reinforced floor. That floor is probably sitting on dirt. This is probably built on the ground. This cottage probably doesn't have a basement. So there you have an infinite amount of support for this thing. This is a little too high up. I would change that. I would take this bracket off the wall and bring it down to here. But the tub is, because look at that. You'd have to be the Incredible Hulk for that to really work as a shower. Obviously it doesn't. Obviously this not at all redesigned cottage has a functional bathroom somewhere else. This is decorative. This isn't meant for a guest to use. It is kind of nice. I grew up with a tub like that and would really like to have another one. And the same thing is true here. This is a pretty good bedroom. You would just need to send in those two. Oh, you don't want this, first of all. That's blasphemy. To have books that are literally out of reach and that you cannot see. You have no idea what they are. They're only meant to be an accent to the room. Books are living things. They should never be an accent to any room. We're going to see that happen again in this issue. But this is the master bedroom, I assume, and it's wrong. The headboard is blind to the view. That's insane. That's absolutely insane. That completely wastes the window. I know that probably the person is thinking it's natural light for when I'm reading, but the people who have this, who converted this cottage, don't read. We all do. So what you would want, you would send your boys in and you would get them to move this bed around. You want the headboard right here and the bed lengthwise along the wall so that you can look out the window at trees, at weather, and so you still get the natural light, and also it frees up the floor space. You walk into this room now, you're bumping into the bed right away. Now, the bed needs to be against the wall. But that is not structural, aside from, I mean, the books are not only inaccessible, but their pages out. The spines are hidden. That is loathsome. That is just loathsome. Whatever interior design cokehead thought that was a good idea really needs to be fired. Here we have, this is a clubhouse. This is from a 100-year-old farmhouse that was turned into a gentleman's lake retreat. How loathsome. But very nice view from the dining room. Get rid of this, obviously, and get rid of this. What are you going to sing an opera? You get rid of the dumb, tacky stuff, but you wouldn't need to tear up the room at all. The room is pretty good, and if it's going to be a dining room, this is fine for the placement of the table. You just want to get rid of the tacky stuff. Rich people get so tacky, and it happens so fast. I never understand that. I really do. I never understand why that happens. But there was another feature here. Oh yes, this is a nice little detail. Nice curving stair going up. Right, that would have been servants that would have used that. That was not for the, but it's a nice little detail. I'm glad that they kept the door to this kitchen, and I like that's the way you enter this little kitchen, is through that arched doorway. Of course, all of these places are completely devoid of books. Just have to live with that. Just have to live with that. There's no way around it. A lot of these the house examples here claim to be inviting, and then provide you with the exact opposite. One is, so the article is called Shades of Grey, and the subtitle is, A Cheerful Designer Gives a White Box New Build a Surge of Life. And there's no life anywhere. Look at this. Look at that. That is absolutely soulless. You're not allowed to light those candles, and they're fake anyway. The chair clashes, and it's meant to clash, and you're not allowed to sit in it anyway. What are these things? They're not paintings. They're not meant to be enjoyed visually. But, okay, so they're mirrors, but what's the mirror doing up here? Again, are you having the Incredible Hulk over for dinner? Otherwise, why do you have mirrors up there? It's gross. The room might have some basic structural integrity to it, but you would have to pull everything out and just redo it. Same here. Nice chairs, huh? Don't they look inviting? Look at this thing. It's monstrous. Just monstrous. You would need to change all of this. I don't think you would need to destroy it, like with that ready-made house that was all windows. But here we have, this is probably the closest, the near miss. This is a pied-à-terre in Houston. And like most pied-à-terres in home design magazines like this, it's got more floor space than your home does. Even though it's meant to be a little cubbyhole, a little hideaway, it's still huge. And it has really good bones. as an old roommate of mine used. I used to have a roommate years and years ago who used to notice when an apartment had good bones. Once upon a time, we were looking for a place, and she found a place above a trattoria that had good bones, as she put it. And she went ahead of time. I didn't want to do any traipsing around looking at places. It was her decision anyway. We weren't going to pick anything. I don't care. So, and she knew that. So she found a place, and she was very thorough. This was above a trattoria, so you wanted to make absolutely sure that none of the smells are invading your apartment, and none of them were. She walked around it and said it has really good bones, and she went down and talked to the landlord, who was also the restaurateur. And she came to and found me and said, I found the place, the rent is reasonable, it's really well placed, and it's got good bones, it's above a restaurant. And I said, great, okay, fine. So you need me to come around to sign it? She said, no, he's not willing yet. The landlord is not willing yet. He seems to be a little dodgy because we're not married. I want you to go over. And I said, well, what difference would that make? I mean, I'll go if you want me to, but that's not going to make us any more married. Why would you want me to go? And she said, because on the floor in his restaurant, she was dripping with disdain when she said this. She obviously didn't approve. She said, on the floor in his restaurant, he has his dog. It's a big dog. He's got his tan body with a black face. I knew she meant a boxer. She's got this big dog, and he just sits there looking at everybody. But he's not friendly. He's not unfriendly. He made sure to tell me the dog is not unfriendly. He's just not friendly. So he's not going to come over and do anything to you, but you're not in any danger. You can come in and get food, and he's not going to bother you. And I said, oh, well, he sounds adorable. And she said, could you control yourself? That's exactly why I'm telling you this. I want you to come with me next time and do your dog thing with his dog. That will push him over the edge. I said, all right, if you think that's true. So we went over, and sure enough, there was a big, beautiful boxer who was just laying there like a sphinx, watching everybody that comes or goes. And I said hello to the owner, and I said, that's a beautiful dog. And the owner said, yeah, he's a good boy. And I said, he is indeed. And without waiting, because the owner would have refused permission, without waiting, I went over and sat down with the boxer and said, you are a good boy. You're beautiful. And he lost it. Absolutely lost. He sniffed me for 30 seconds, and then he lost it. Just quivering all over, pawing all over, trying to fit my whole face in his mouth. It was wonderful. Absolutely wonderful. And it did get us the apartment. Because he had never seen his dog act that way before. And so my roommate was right. But this place has good bones. This is a pied-à-terre outside of Houston. It's got built-in bookcases. All of the tchotchkes here, all of this ridiculous furniture would all have to go. But the structure is nice. And I don't mind an all-glass balcony if you're up above the fray. I don't mind that at all. There's a lot of stuff. Look at this. That's the room that we saw on the cover. You'd want to get rid of this table. It's meant to be knocked over, right? You don't want to keep anything in your house that Deb and I are going to knock over. We are your gold standard. Okay? If Deb and I are going to demolish a room, then the room is wrong. We're not wrong. The room is wrong. You'd want to get rid of this. You'd want to get rid of these torture chamber chairs and put in nice comfy things. And you most especially don't want a love seat or a seat of any kind blocking bookshelves. I'm sure that this room would accommodate a rearrange so that the bookshelves are, first of all, you want the bookshelves to be completely full. None of this artful volumes falling over other volumes. And notice, this was bought. Those are Reader's Digest volumes. The books on these shelves were bought by a service like the Brattle. Somebody said, we're doing House Beautiful is doing a photo shoot. We need 300 square feet of shelving of books. Just come and install them, make them look nice and scholarly and comfortable and whatnot. No. Bookshelves would be used. Bookshelves would be cruelly overused. So you'd want to fill those with books and get rid of this, get rid of those. But otherwise, this is kind of salvageable. In terms of whether or not it works for me and Deb, you'd want to get rid of all of the chairs here. They are all inhospitable. What is this? What is that supposed to be? Honestly, what is this supposed to be? But you can see the bones are good. It's huge. It's a pied-à-terre, but it's gigantic. It's much bigger than you would need, but still salvageable. Here you have the lovely kitchen with a stack of plates. Look at that. How many people do you expect to have over in this little cubbyhole? Look at that stack of plates. I've never understood humans and their plates. I've never understood that. I have one plate. I don't share it with anybody, and I don't clean it. Why would I clean it when the accumulation of smells and textures makes it just perfect? every once in a while, a guest will come over and they'll think, when my back is turned, they'll think they're doing me a good turn by putting a thing into a scouring pad with a bunch of, olive olay and whatnot. And I've never understood. I'm not claiming to. Oh, here's the balcony. Very nice. Very, very nice. So we can end this little tour. I just noticed this video has gone on way longer than it should have. We can end this little tour with a space that is salvageable. We won't. The less said, the better about this Puget Sound house in the woods that has an actual ramp for the bears to make it even easier for them to get to you. It has a ramp they can just waddle up in order to get into your house. Oh, God. But anyway, so there you go. That was a weird Sunday video. Just a request for ideas about a movie feature, some dog stories, and some magazines. And yet I managed to go on for an hour. Sorry. Well, I will be better behaved tomorrow. Thank you, BookTube.